And that's a powerful story. So what's the business that you're really in? What's the value that you really provide? I'll give you another couple of examples. We were working with a company in Queensland a few years ago called Lawn Block, and they make turf. Has anyone here ever laid a lawn before? Right? It's hard work, isn't it? It's heavy. You know, the truck or the ute shows up, you wrestle those rolls of turf off, and then you've got to try and roll them into straight lines. It's heavy, hard work. They said, we don't do that. What we do is we create lawn blocks. They're basically the size of carpet squares, about 90 centimetres by 90 centimetres. So anyone can lay a lawn because it's really easy, right? And we said, okay, well, why don't we use a classic torture test to sell this? And we thought, what if we get a little old lady, someone like Betty White from the Golden Girls, and we get her to say, look, if I can lay a lawn with lawn block, anyone can lay a lawn with lawn block. So the idea we came up with was this. If you see a tradie in my front yard, he's not laying the lawn. Lawn block, the easy lay. And I'll be honest, we were really pleased with ourselves when we came up with that. Kieran and I thought, let's have the afternoon off. But then we thought, okay, let's make sure that we're not just talking to ourselves. Let's make sure this is actually going to move the dial. This is actually going to shift product. Let's make sure this is going to make a difference. So what we did is we had a look at some of the purchasing data from the big box hardware stores, people like Bunnings and Masters at the time. And what we found out was the average lawn purchase from a big box hardware store was 2 metres by 2 metres, basically the size of the tables you're sitting at if they were square. That's pretty small. That's smaller than the typical courtyard garden anywhere in Australia. What we realised was people weren't going to hardware stores to buy lawn. They were going to hardware stores because they used to have one of these, or because they used to have one of these, or because they currently have one of these and they want to get their bond back. What we realised was people weren't buying lawn, they were buying a lawn repair kit. So that's what we sold. This is a few years ago, so the idea we ended up presenting to them was this. We had a perfect lawn on the left, December 24, a lawn with a hole, December 24, and a perfect lawn, December 25. Because we all know the real meaning of Christmas is judging family. The product was exactly the same. The way they produced the product remained the same. The value we created was fundamentally different. It doesn't cost you anything most of the time to add that intangible value. Let me give you another example. We were working with another young entrepreneur, a 24-year-old guy, good-looking guy from Melbourne called Nick. And we said, okay, and it was a similar kind of session to this, and we said, and he stood up and we said, okay, Nick, what business are you really in? What's the value you really provide? And he goes, oh, Dan and Kieran, I make people feel good about cutting down trees. We thought, Jesus, Nick, don't put that on the website. What do you mean, mate? He said, well, I'm actually an environmentalist. And what people don't realise is when you cut down a tree, you not only do you stop it absorbing more carbon from the atmosphere, it goes through a chipper and that releases all of the stored carbon that's actually in the tree. So it's a double whammy. He said, so I don't do that. If the tree or branch is any bigger than 20 centimetres in diameter, I keep the timber and I turn it into furniture. How cool is that? Nowhere on his website, or at least impossible to find. His website's this. It's nothing. It's pictures of Nick with a chainsaw. It's like a Tinder profile, right? And we said, mate, that's your business. That's your value. So what we said is we're going to change the name of your business. Your business is now called treeincarnation.com. And it's all about what will your tree come back as. And we said, what we want you to do... Now, this is a few years ago. This is in Melbourne. They had a bunch of windstorms come through. That's where he lives, on the sort of the eastern side of Melbourne. We said, we want you to go to all of the schools in your catchment area. And the offer is, I'll come in and I'll take down the trees or branches that need to come down to make the school safe. But what I'll do is I'll use that timber to build an outdoor classroom so you can talk to your kids about sustainability. Another one of the ideas we came up with is, let's go to some of the Project Home companies like the Masters or the Allens. And what you're going to do is you're going to say, look, you've got 5 acres to clear to build these quarter-acre blocks. Eighth of an acre blocks. It's 2022, Dan. Catch up, right? And we said, what you're going to do is you're going to go and you say, what I'm going to do is I'll clear the blocks that need to be done, and then what I'll do is I'll create a coffee table using that timber, and it's a gift to everyone who buys a home in that area, with a story on a plaque underneath that says, this tree has been sitting on this block for 100 years or 200, whatever it is, right? All of a sudden, Nick starts being interviewed by the media. Does anyone know any famous tree loppers? Right? But the reason they were interested is he built his business around value. It was more than just being a tree lopper. It was more than just being an arborist. He created value above and beyond. Again, I hit this word a lot. What's the value you create above and beyond? So what I want you to do, this is a tool you can use to think about what's the value you really provide. In other words, what's the real thing that you're selling, the psychological thing you're selling? So let me explain to you how this works. At the top level, there's the literal thing. There's the thing that you sell. So for Nick, that was I cut down trees, tree lopping, right? Then beneath the literal is the emotional. You know, I feel a particular way, but I want to feel a different way. I'm not feeling really good about cutting down a tree, but I want to feel okay about it because I want to put it in a swimming pool, whatever it is, right? And then the psychological level is what you're really selling, what drives all of your sales. So at the literal level, Nick is in the tree removal business, but at the psychological level, he's at the guilt removal business. Now, he's never going to say that to a customer, but that's what drives every sale in his business.